Hey, what's up, scallywags? It's raining here. We had a couple tornadoes go through. Supposed to have snow on the way, which sucks because snow on the roads mean I'm not going to be riding the bike. I could ride the bike, but I'm not going to be because I don't want to fuck the bike up. I get some stuff together I got a new hot water heater, and I really need to get that hot water heater in. Ah, shit. Leather. Yeah, I thought I'd do a little video real quick on the fact that there is good and bad in everything. I've been looking for that too. It's my little, little motorcycle lighter. But I was talking to my friend Dolly earlier, and you know, there's in America here, there was a big defund the police push, and for a lot of my life, to my shame, I was a criminal. I was so much of a criminal when my wife Amy and I got married. The very next day, the day after our wedding, she was going to do some laundry, but she was afraid to use the laundromat where we lived. So she put some laundry in the car and was heading over to her mother's house. And on the way over there, she got pulled over by the police. And she said, "Sir, I just got married yesterday, and I haven't had the chance to change my name and my address yet on my driver's license." And the police officer said, we know who you are, Mrs. And she said my last name. And they said, and we know where you live. Picture that. You just marry somebody, you get pulled over, and you're trying to explain that you haven't changed your name and your address on your driver's license yet, which is a law whenever you move or you're married, or you have to change those things on your driver's license. And then the police tell you, we know where you live and we know who you are because of the person you're married to. Whenever I was younger, because I was involved in a criminal lifestyle, I viewed the police as my enemy. And I could not tell you how many times I have had the police beat the living shit out of me. Usually after they got me handcuffed. Not one time, not once did I ever say police brutality, because I was spitting at them, I was throwing punches at them, I was telling them I had relations with their mother, I've kicked the back window out of a cruiser, of their squad car. And I grew up in a time where when you messed up, you knew there were consequences of that. And some of those consequences might be you get your head knotted up. I didn't take it as personal. And believe me, there's many times the police have beat the hell out of me. I remember one time in particular, as a matter of fact, wasn't the last time. Last time I was arrested, it's when I turned myself in for robbing the gas station. But one of the last times I was arrested, I had gotten in a fight. And this guy, he was a newer cop. I didn't know him. I'm guessing he was probably ex-military. But he was a big dude. I mean, a big dude. I was only like 165 pounds. But I had kicked the back window out of the police cruiser. They had me handcuffed in the back seat. And I laid back on my back and I kicked the window out. He didn't like that. So they drug me out, flipped me over on my stomach, and they took the plastic zip ties and they tied my ankles with the zip ties. And then they took a zip tie and tied my ankles to my handcuffs. So I was hogtied basically, and they tossed me in the back seat. When we got into the county jail, he pulled into the Sally port, and this was a big boy. He reached in and he grabbed with one hand that whole mess of zip ties and handcuffs, and he lifted me up with one hand, chest high, and he said, "You see the floor?" And he let me go. So now I got the floor coming up to meet me, and there's nothing I could do but hit the concrete. Every time I'd hit the concrete, I'd be cussing him, calling him terrible names, and he'd reach down, lift me up again, chest level, drop me smack on my face. You're hogtied. You can't put your hands in front of you. All you can do is wait for that concrete to hit. And he did that a bunch of times. And finally, I heard one of the other officers come on the speaker, and he said, "Just bring him in here. You ain't going to get through to him." And he took me in, and they booked me, and I've been handcuffed and had the living shit beat out of me many times. But the point I'm trying to make is, ever since I turned my life around and I sought out God, once you have God in your heart, you can't do the things you used to do because your heart is convicted. You know right from wrong. You can't do things and not feel guilty about it. And, everybody downs the police. You hear people saying, like a lot of my best friend's black that lives with me and Amy, Nate. The one thing I will say I have noticed that is true, at least in the county and state where I did most of my time, is that in the legal system, a black man will typically get more time than a white man for the same crime, and they will typically get convicted more than a white man for the same crime. I've seen it too many times to not be a real thing. I'm not going to see something and then deny that it's not true. I've seen it too many times to be just coincidence. I think some of the reason for that is a lot of what depends on you being convicted or not in this country is your financial situation. How good of a lawyer can you afford? That has a lot to do with it. And most inner city black people are very poor. and they don't have money to pay for good representation. That's one of the reasons I think the conviction rate is higher. And it's also a reason I think when prosecutors are looking for a scapegoat, somebody to railroad, what are you going to do? Try to railroad some poor black kid or some rich white boy that got a bunch of money mommy and daddy going to pay out and get him a high-powered lawyer? You're going to go for the poor kid. And that does happen in this country. That being said, I will say that from what I've experienced in my lifetime with the legal system, the black man is convicted more, and the black man usually gets more time too when he is convicted. I've seen it too much. It's not a coincidence. I think a lot of it's because of money, but I've seen it too much to deny that that does not happen, because it most certainly does. That being said, a lot of black people will say because they are black, they are more likely to get shot by the police. I have looked the statistics up. They got statistics for the FBI on about every crime you could possibly imagine. And there are more white police officers in the country than any other race. But those white police officers kill less black people in the line of duty than a lot of the other races. So it isn't that white cops are out there just wanting to kill black people. There was a time in this country racism was a serious, serious issue. And there's some people that are still racist. I've met black people that are racist. I gave an example wherever that woman, Miss Evelyn Volker, gave me that she was Native American. I was in a county jail. There was a bunch of black guys going to beat up her son for no other reason than he was Native American. And I said, what, did he rip one of you guys off or something? No, man, he's Indian. I said, you're kidding me. You're going to beat him up because he's Indian after what happened to your people? I've met a lot of racist black people. So anybody that says that black people cannot be racist, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. The group that I ran with as a kid, we had a lot of black friends, a lot of Mexican friends, a lot of white friends. It was pretty mixed up. But there are a lot of black racist people against whites. There's whites that are racist against blacks. But I think our children, as the generations go by, are learning to get along better. What really fuels the race issue is our leaders, our politicians. They're the ones that push that division between the races in this country now. But there was a time that America was very racist. Very racist. And it wasn't all that long ago. Wasn't all that long ago that black men were still being hung. So what I'm saying is there's racist in all races. And all racism is ignorance. And it's usually taught. We don't come into this world. You look at two little kids, a little white boy, a little black boy. They look at a kid and they see a different color, but all they see is a friend, somebody to play with. I know white guys that are in black gangs because they grew up in neighborhoods. That was their friends. And most gangs are by the neighborhood where you grow up. And little kids, they just see a friend. They don't see in color. The racism is taught to them. And unfortunately, usually by people in their family older than them. It's a learned thing. We are not born racist. My mother, when she told me that she was raped, before she even told me what had happened when I was in my 30s, and it happened when I was like 6 years old, she said, the first thing I want to tell you before I tell you what I'm going to tell you is white men do that too, you know? I don't want to say the word because you got to say graped, because God knows putting a G in front of the word, that just changes everything. But first thing she said to me is that white men do that too. She raised us that you judge each man by his character, by how he carries himself. My first girlfriend was a little black girl. My mom had a friend, Yvonne, and she was Yvonne's daughter, and we went to school together. And I'm talking fourth grade. We didn't do nothing but hold hands out on the playground, but that was my first girlfriend. And, you know, a lot of blacks will say that they're more at risk of getting shot by the police. Maybe that's true, but the statistics say that white cops kill less black men in the line of duty than black cops. You can look the statistics up. Me, I am just as much at risk, if not more, of getting shot by a police officer than any black man in America, because I am on a federal gang database list. I didn't know about this till Arizona. Amy and I were living out in Arizona, and we got pulled over one day on the way home. And Amy said, "What is wrong with this police officer?" And I look in the side mirror, and he's got his pistol out, down behind the back of the car. And next thing I know, here comes his backup. They did the whole thing. Driver, hands out the window. I had to put my hands behind my head, lace my fingers, back up, kneel down, spread eagle, palms up on the fucking asphalt, on the hot Arizona asphalt. They did the same thing to my daughter, or my wife. They put us both in different vehicles, handcuffed in the back seat. And like 5 minutes later, they got us out, unhandcuffed us, let us get back in our vehicle. Police officer came, he gave me my driver's license, insurance, registration. He said, "Okay, you can go." I said, "Well, what did I do?" And he said, "You were doing 5 over the speed limit." And I said, "So you're going to pull a gun out on my fucking wife?" And he said, "Well, you red flagged me." Well, to me, I worked construction my whole life. A red flag, to me, is something I tie on my ladder when it's hanging out the back of his truck. So I said to him, I said, "I don't even have my work truck." And he said, "No, on my computer." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "On my computer, a little red flag pops up. And it said that you are a known prison gang member, you are extremely violent and dangerous, and I need to be very careful with you." And I said, "Sir, I have never been to prison in Arizona." And he said, "This is nationwide. You are in a federal gang database." I said, "You're kidding me." He said, "No." After we moved back here from Arizona, when Amy's mom got sick, I talked to one of my brothers that was in the same prison gang, my brother Johnny, and he said, "Oh yeah, you didn't know that? Once you get your flag and they know you got some juice, you go on that list." And I will be on that list till the day I die. I'm not the same man that they see on paper. That's not me no more. That man died somewhere out in Arizona, and he's buried out there, and I hope he never comes back. But my point is, when the police pull you over, before they even approach the side window, they run those license plates. That car's registered to me, they know exactly who I am. And that little red flag pops up. And they are very nervous. They don't have any reason to be nervous anymore, but they don't know that. They want to get home when they're done working to their family alive. And the point I'm trying to make with all this is my last crime I ever committed was in 1991. Have not been arrested for anything, nothing, since 1991. And anybody that knows anything about the recidivism rate, which is how long does an inmate stay out before he goes back to prison, I've blown that out of the water. I haven't been arrested since 91 for anything. That shows change, legitimate change. But the police officers don't know that. All they know is what they see on paper. And what they see on paper is exactly what I said. Known prison gang member, extremely violent, dangerous, approach with caution. Be careful with this guy. So I am very much at risk of getting shot by the police. Ever since I turned my life around, I don't get combative with the police. I don't see them as the enemy. As a matter of fact, I'm glad they're there. This is coming from somebody that used to be a criminal. This whole defund the police is one of the stupidest ideas in the history of stupid ideas. I've lived with the wolf in a maximum security prison. I know what the wolf is like. And they will feed on innocent people ravenously without mercy. And the only thing keeping that from happening is the police officers. They're the ones that hold that line and keep everything in order and keep chaos from breaking out. I guarantee you, a lot of these people that want to get rid of the cops, if that would happen, they'd be begging for them to come back, because what it would be like out here would make prison look like a nice place to be. Most of my friends are convicted felons. So I don't invite the police over for dinner. They'd be like, what the fuck's going on with you, bro? But I don't see them as an enemy. And when I get pulled over, I say, yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. They ask for my driver's license, I give it to them. They ask for my registration, I say, ma'am or sir, whatever it might be, I'm going to keep my left hand on the steering wheel, and I'm going to get my registration out of the glove box with my right hand. I give them my registration. And my wife gets upset sometimes because almost every time they let me go. Okay, slow down a little. Okay, come to a complete stop. And what's the difference in all that? Before they come up to the window, they're seeing that red flag. They know I've been to prison. They know I was in a prison gang. And they know I have violent charges. Why aren't they beating me up now? It's because I'm being respectful. I'm not being combative, and I am complying. I'm letting them do their job like they have to do to enforce the law. They don't make the laws. Congress makes the laws. They just enforce them. That's like everybody getting mad at ICE. ICE does not make the laws. Congress does. So if you want to get mad at anybody, you get mad at Congress if you don't like the laws. They just are doing their job enforcing the laws. Another thing I'll say about the police, they have a very high suicide rate and alcoholism rate. Now let's imagine every day at work, you are dealing with all the assholes in society. You're going to calls where children have been abused, wives have been abused, people have been killed, terrible things all day. You're dealing with criminals all day, and none of them are respecting you. How long do you think it's going to take before your heart starts getting hard? Before you start seeing all human beings as assholes? If there's anything I think they should do with police, I think they should only be allowed to do that job for so long. Because when you're dealing with assholes day in, day out, every day, and seeing the things that they see, I know our police right down the road here, a lot of them had to go through counseling because this cowardly piece of shit was dating this gal. The woman had 3 children, a 13, 11, and 9-year-old daughter. He wanted to go somewhere, and he said he was going to take her vehicle to do it. And she said, no, you're drunk. That's the only vehicle I got. If you wreck it, I can't get to work. So he said, okay, give me a ride. She said, I will, but right now I'm cooking dinner for the girls. I'll do it after dinner. This coward pulled out a handgun, blew her brain pan out. The 11 and 13-year-old shot both them in the head in the kitchen there. The 9-year-old was standing out on the back porch, and she saw all that through the back porch door. He went out to shoot her, and she ran, thank God. He got her in the hand, and then he walked in the kitchen and, like a coward, put the gun in his mouth and killed himself. They've since condemned that house, and they're having it torn down. But imagine walking in and seeing that. Just imagine walking in and seeing that. That's enough to traumatize anybody. I don't care how hard you think you are. When there's my Uncle Steve took his own life. And back then they didn't have companies that would go in and clean that stuff up. And my Aunt Debbie and my Uncle Rick went in. And they're the ones that cleaned the brains and everything up out of the kitchen. So my mother wouldn't have to deal with it. But my point is, there's good and bad in everything. I had one police officer in my life. Gabby Resowitz is his name. He's retired now. Gabby saved my life 2 times. And there was one time I was really mad at Gabby. I woke up in the city jail, covered in blood from a blackout drunk. And he brought me my breakfast food up. And I was freaking out because I'm known for carrying knives. And I got all this blood on me, but no cuts, no wounds that would cause the blood. And I'm thinking, oh my God, Mark, what did you do? I said, Gabby, what's my charges? He turned around and went downstairs. Lunchtime, he brought my lunch up. Gabby, what's my charges? He turned around and walked away again, and I yelled at him. I said, damn it, you have to tell me what I'm charged with. And he said, Mark, you've been here enough to know. I got 72 hours to charge you. He goes, you beat the hell out of 2 guys at the Top Hat Tavern last night, and I just wanted you to think about it. He said, one of these days you're going to kill somebody, and you're going to wake up here and not even know what you did. And at the time, I was mad at him. Real mad. But growing up, getting some maturity, some worldly experience underneath me, I realized a man was trying to get through my thick head. Another time, a good friend of me and Nate's, Tommy, he got beat so bad he had a pumpkin hand. Like six dudes jumped him and just beat him. He couldn't see. His head was all swollen up. Well, we went to get these guys. And when I told everybody, I said, do not kick the door in, do not go in the house. We're not catching us a Class X 6-30 home invasion tonight. We got to get them to step out. So we're calling them bitches, punks, all the words that'll get a man to where he's got to fight. And when they finally stepped out, lights hit us from every direction. And the cops was waiting on us. And there was a female officer that night. First time I ever seen a female officer on that police department. And she's poking me in the stomach with a nightstick, saying, "Who are you? Who are you?" I told her my name, and she goes, "Oh, I heard about you. You think you're a real tough guy." And she kept poking me in the stomach. I yanked the nightstick out of her hand. I wasn't going to hit her with it, but I was getting tired of getting poked in the stomach. And as soon as I yanked that nightstick out of her hand, Gabby stepped in front of me because the other police officers were starting to clear their holsters. He's like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa." He said, "Mark, let me talk to you." And he took the nightstick from me. We walked about a block down the street. He said, "I took the police report on Tommy. I saw Tom. We knew you were coming. Do whatever you're going to do, but don't do it here in this town." And he said, "Don't ever do what you just did. You almost got killed." And he's right. I almost did get killed. He said, "They are very protective of the female officers." I said, "Gabby, I wasn't going to hit her. I just got tired of getting poked in the stomach." He said, "I don't care. Don't ever do that again." The man saved my life. Because believe me when I say they were pulling their pistols. And then he did something that went against his own. When I robbed a gas station, last time I was arrested, they were hunting me. They were kicking in doors. And my lawyer, very good criminal defense attorney, now he's a state prosecutor, but he kept trying to talk me in to turning myself in. He said, "I can get you a much better deal if you turn yourself in." Turning myself in was against everything. Your instinct tells you to run. But I went in to see my lawyer one day. He said, "I saw somebody that knows you up at the courthouse." I said, "Who?" He said, "Gabby. He wanted me to give you something." And he handed me a little envelope, said Mark on it. And he said, "I wish you'd just turn yourself in, Mark, because I can get you a better deal." And we talked, I left, and I read Gabby's message. It was short, but to the point. It said, "Mark, when you turn yourself in, if you do, don't turn yourself into city. They do not want to arrest you." And I knew exactly what that meant. So when I turned myself in, and he did get me a better deal, I turned myself into county because city did not want to arrest me. What he let me know right there is it'd be a lot safer for me to turn myself into county. That's how much I was messing up. When they're tired of playing with you. I did my time and I ain't been back since. Prison is not the place to be. You know what prison taught me? Prison taught me that I was not the baddest thing walking in the land. Prison taught me that the things that I did because I was in a rage and angry, there were people that did that because it's truly what they enjoyed doing. And nobody's bad in prison. It don't matter who you are. They send enough guys at you with knives, you're dead. It's a violent world where there is no love. When you go through electric eye and they're processing you at Menard Correctional Center, they have a saying from Dante's Inferno right above the doorway. It says, "Leave all your hopes and dreams behind you. You are now entering hell." And that's what a maximum security prison is. It is hell. There is no love. Nobody cares if you live or die. Mommy ain't going to help you. Daddy ain't going to help you. And there's nowhere to run. It's gladiator school. It's extremely violent, extremely dangerous, and there's no running away from it. And there's nobody that gives one iota whether you live or die. But my point is in all this, when it comes to racism, there's racist of every single color. If you live in the United States of America, you can be anything you want to be, but you have to apply yourself. And you can't use, oh, I've been arrested, I can't succeed in life as an excuse. You can't use I'm black as an excuse. You can't use anything as an excuse. Look at Dr. Ben Carson. He was raised in the projects, and he's one of the top neurosurgeons in the world, and he's black. Do you want to apply yourself and work your way out? Now, I'll admit, in the inner cities, because see, I've seen both sides. I've been homeless. I got white friends that are as poor as any black man in the country. And inner city kids, their opportunities are limited. Some of them, the only meal they get during the day, if they're lucky, is at school. When mom's strung out on drugs, dad don't live in the house, because the whole welfare system, it's designed to separate the family. If the father lives in the house, you don't get as much. You try to get a job, you end up making less than what you're getting on welfare. They want to keep you sucking on that government tit. But when a kid he's hungry, and he sees the dope man over there slinging dope, got nice clothes on, nice car, full belly, that's tempting for a kid. That's why I believe more opportunities have to be pushed into those areas where a kid's got more choices of what to do with their life. Mommy and daddy can't afford to send them to college. And the gangs look real tempting to them. And a lot of things people don't understand about the gangs too. These kids grow up by the time they're in kindergarten. They know what all the gang graffiti means because it's by neighborhood. Dad was in the same gang. Grandpa was in the same gang. It's rinse and repeat. And we got gang members, young black men killing each other all day long in the streets all across America. This is what they're raised in. A lot of people think, oh, black people, they're bad, they're violent, they're this, they're that. They don't know what it's like. It's not that they're bad people. It's that desperate people sometimes will do desperate things. They don't see any other way. That's what they're raised in. That's why money needs to be pumped into those communities and programs, create more opportunities for these young people to do something other than sling dope. The child that the village doesn't feed is the same child that will come back and burn the village to the ground. And I don't like when people judge and say, oh, they're bad people. You don't know what it's like to live and walk in their shoes. But it isn't just black people in those hoods. It's white people, Mexican people. My best friend Johnny grew up in one of the most violent parts of St. Louis. I've seen both sides. I could have had the silver spoon if I did what I was supposed to do. And I've been homeless. I can dress up in a suit and tie. I could fit in. I know what all the spoons and forks are for. And I'm not going to drink out of the fucking finger bowl. I can blend in like a chameleon. Cover up the tats, cut the hair. You think I'm a business professional. And I've also not known where my next meal was going to come from. I've walked all night so I didn't freeze to death. I've seen both sides. So it gives me a unique perspective on what it's like to live on both sides. But don't just say that inner city kids are bad. I don't say that. I say, no, inner city kids are desperate. They're hungry. There needs to be money and programs pumped into those communities to catch those kids and keep them out of gangs and Teach them some trades, teach them some skills, create some other opportunities for them besides being a dope dealer. If you were hungry and you didn't have nothing good to eat, and nowadays in schools, what you wear, your tennis shoes, there's a lot of peer pressure on that shit. You got to create opportunities for these kids, or they're going to keep seeing that dope man with the nice clothes and the money and the women, and they're going to want to be the dope man. But don't judge on them unless you've been there. Unless your mother is sticking needles in her arms. You don't know who your pops is. If you do, he ain't around much. Out of all my real close friends, I'm the only one that even knows my dad. But don't judge them and say they're bad. They come into this world innocent just like the rest of us. They're raised in a violent environment. Most of those people have, by the time they're even out of grade school, they have had a friend shot and killed. Desperate people do desperate things. That's why I don't understand. You get out of prison, you do your time, you pay your debt. It's harder to get a job. Can you still get one? Yeah. But it's harder. Why are you going to make things harder on a person who's already proven when they're desperate, they'll do desperate things? I'll tell you why, because there's big money in that prison system. Especially these privatized prisons. I don't think they should have them. Because they get paid so much per inmate. And it's to their best benefit to keep you locked up. Keep that money coming in. I was happy to hear that now in Illinois, they at least have programs where they try to teach you something. When I did my time, you were just stored in a different slot like cargo. In a 3x8 cell with a toilet and a bunk bed in it. 3 foot by 8 foot, toilet and a bunk bed. And it's just, I get tired of hearing the racist shit used as an excuse to not succeed in life. Now, does a person, a young black kid in the inner city growing up in the hood, have a harder time and a longer climb to reach success? You better fucking believe it. I will not deny that for not 1 second. That's why I think the solution to the problem is pump a bunch of federal money into those areas. Create programs with them kids so there's something for them to do besides run the streets and get in trouble. Teach them things. Skills that they can use to succeed. And it's not just black kids that grow up in the hood. I know one of my white friends, I'm not going to say his name, but he's a gangster disciple, and that motherfucker is all about his business. All about his business. He ain't nobody to be playing with. He's a white guy in a black gang. Got another friend lives out in Cali. I'm not going to say his name. White guy that was in a black gang. Now, he's working on his jobs and he's raising his children. He went through prison 8 years. Everybody trying to kill him because he was a white person in a gang that was black. And I got more respect for the man for what he's doing right now than I do for him staying out on the main line with people throwing torpedoes at him left and right, trying to take him out. He's a good man. And the other thing people need to remember is some people do change. Some people change. Just because you were an out-of-control, scarred-up kid and you didn't deal with it positively and you were doing bad things and acting out, it doesn't mean that you're going to be that way forever. Some people change. Like a lot of Christians want to judge people's pasts. Well, when you become a born-again Christian, you're new. You're a new creature in Christ. I can't stand Christians that call themselves Christians and they want to judge on other people. It's not their job to judge on other people. That is Jesus Christ's job when the judgment day comes. Your job is to encourage people. Yes, teach them the ways of Christ, but don't chastise them. Don't act like you're better than them, because you're not. You sin too, just in different ways. But I wanted to do that video because, you know, the police, there's good and bad in everything. You got good cops, you got bad cops. But if the police weren't there, I assure you, you would not like the world that you were living in, and you would wish they were there. I promise you, you get pulled over by the police. You say, yes, sir, no, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. You let them do their job. You give them your driver's license, your insurance and registration. They'll run it, make sure you don't have no warrants. And if you're not doing nothing illegal, they will let you go without a problem. 99.9% of the time. Most of the time when you end up having problems with the police is when you're being a disrespectful little asshole and you're giving them a hard time. They don't want to hear all that screaming and yelling and bullshit out your mouth. They want to do their job. You let them do their job. If you're not breaking the law, you ain't got nothing to worry about. Shut the fuck up. Give them your driver's license. Give them your insurance. Give them your registration. Be respectful. And I promise you, 99.9% of the time, no matter what color you are, you will get respect in return. I'm red flagged with the federal government. When they pull me over, they've already seen that red flag, and they already read the words: known prison gang member, extremely violent and dangerous, approach with caution. And since I have been respectful and not combative, I have not had one single problem with them. Not one. So if you think the police are out to get you, try it once. Instead of running your mouth, yelling, being combative, everything else with them, try saying, yes, sir, no, sir. Give them your driver's license, your registration, and your insurance. Be respectful, and I bet you get a whole different reaction from them. They don't make the laws, but it's their job to enforce the laws. Are there bad cops? Absolutely. I've met a couple, but there's also good cops that started doing that job because they wanted to make a difference. And if you're respectful and you're not breaking the law and you comply, you're going to be at a lot less risk of anything bad happening to you. Just let them do their job. But that's all I got to say. I got some plumbing work to do, but much love and respect to all of you. And it's something to think about. And if you got a problem with the police where they've messed with you before, try what I'm saying once. Try what I'm saying. And I'd be willing to bet you don't have no problems with them. Peace out. Much love, people. I just wanted to add real quick onto this video. That police officer I was talking about, Gabby, I got the unique opportunity to actually thank that man. He was one of the people I was wanting to thank when I came back. And I was at my friend Youngblood's house, and he said, you ain't going to believe who lives next door to me. And I said, who? And he said, Gabby. I said, get out of here, man. He said, I'm not kidding. I went over to the front door and knocked on the door, and in true police officer cliche, he answers the door in a wife beater t-shirt and a pair of boxers. And I said, hey, what's up, Gabby? And he looked at me with this confused look in his eyes, and his head turned sideways, and he goes, Mark? And I said, yeah. How you doing? He goes, I thought you were dead. You ain't been arrested in so long. I said, well, I went out to Arizona for 15 years. I found myself. I said, I'm just now finishing up an associate's degree, computer science. And he said, get the fuck out of here. I said, I'm serious. He said, I'll be damned. And then he goes, what can I do for you, Mark? And I said, I just wanted to thank you. And Gabby said, for what? And I said, for always treating me like a human being, even when I was acting like an animal. And he got a smile on his face and he said, you're welcome, Mark. And, we talked for a minute. He said, I'm glad you're doing good. He goes, I really thought you had gotten yourself killed or something. But it was nice to be able to thank him because he was a good cop. He never asked you to snitch or nothing. He let detectives do all that shit. But if you weren't being ignorant with Gabby was good to you. And he did save my life that one night because they were pulling pistols. You don't ever want to pull a nightstick out of a female officer's hand, any officer's hand. That's a quick way to get yourself messed up. And since I've grown up, I realized what he was trying to do, That time he wouldn't tell me what my charges were. And you want to talk about sweating and being nervous. I used to carry my butterfly knife on the right side. I had a straight razor, old German hollow core razor that I used to carry on the left side. And then I carried a boot knife in my one sock because back in the day we wore our socks up, not them short socks. I was known for having 3 knives on me at all times. That was my thing, was knives. And when you're known for carrying knives and using knives, and you wake up from a blackout drunk in the city jail covered in blood, and you're not cut, believe me, you talk about a half a day of nervous wreck sweating, that was me. My mind was, oh my God, what did I do? And Gabby's right. If I would have kept going the way I was, it was just a matter of time. And I might have woken up in jail someday after taking a life, and because I was so drunk, not even remember it. But I just wanted to put this video out here. I mean, people don't listen to much no more. Everybody's into the drama, and they think all the gang banging's cool, and everybody's attacking the police officers and people that are just enforcing laws that they don't make. It's like getting mad at a soldier that's fighting a war. The soldier didn't start that war. The politicians did. Congress makes the laws. If you don't like a law in America, anything with immigration or anything else, then as an American, you write your congressman, you write your senator, and you vote. That's how things are done in America. You don't attack. Attacking a police officer because you don't like a law is like beating the hell out of Ronald McDonald because you got a bad cheeseburger. It don't make no sense. They didn't make the law. They're doing their damn job to feed their families. And all these protesters, most of them are paid anyways, and if they get a damn job, they wouldn't have all the time for all that bullshit. But it don't make no sense to me. I've been down in Mexico, not just in border towns. I've been deeper into Mexico. I've seen a whole hillside down there with cardboard boxes people were living in. I understand why people want to come to America. And I'm like, come on. But you got to do it the right way. You can't bum rush the borders. I lived near the border for 15 years. I've seen what a drain it puts on the school systems, the hospitals. One of my best friends, a man that I loved like a father, I took care of him the last 18 months of his life because he didn't have insurance and watched this man die of cancer. I was bathing him. I was changing his shitty pants and pissy pants because he got incontinent at the end. I watched a 240-pound man go down to about 115 pounds because the hospital wouldn't treat him because he didn't have insurance. I found out later on there's a federal law named after a man that they had to treat him, but they didn't. And they were treating people that didn't even speak the English language. So I understand why people want to come to America. And the Mexican culture is one of the best cultures I've ever met. I truly mean that. The ones I met in Arizona were all very, very hard workers. They were all very family oriented. Family was everything to them. And most of them were good, God-fearing people. But you got to do it the right way, especially nowadays in the age of terrorism. I know everybody ain't forgot 9/11. This whole time the borders was open, there's all kinds of bad people that have come across the border. Yeah, some of them are good people looking for a better life. But a lot of people have come across that border that will strap a bomb to themselves and kill you, your mother, brothers, and sisters. We live in dangerous times. And as a country, we have a right to know who's coming across that border. But that's all I got to say about it. I just wanted to add this on here and let you know that I did get a chance to thank Gabby. And I appreciate what he did for me when I was younger. And he was a police officer, but he was a good police officer. And I think you'll find when dealing with the police, if you give them respect and you let them do their job, things will go a lot easier on you. Me and my friends, because of the lifestyle I lived, we don't call the police. I had my house robbed one time, apartment I was living in, and I didn't call the police. I put my ear to the bricks. I found out who did it, and I got a hold of them. I got everything back they took except for a boombox, and the boombox had only one speaker that worked on it, but I convinced him it would be to his best interest to pay me $500 for that cheap boombox, so I got much more money than that boombox was worth. It's another problem with living a criminal lifestyle. You can't call the police. You call the police, you're going to have problems with the people you're running with. All my friends, they don't call the police. They deal with it themselves. But I'm not a criminal anymore. I worked my ass off 15 years in Arizona. I raised a family, 4 children I raised. I've been with one woman for almost 30 years. Only one woman. I treat her like a queen. I've never put my hands on her. Never cheated on her. I love her and I cherish her. When I was young, I was a scarred up, mentally messed up kid. And instead of dealing with that positively, I went to drugs, alcohol, and fighting and being an asshole. And I caused myself a lot more unnecessary problems. That's why my whole message is bad things happen sometimes when we're kids. But you got to deal with it positively. You got to talk to somebody. There's other ways to deal with it. But if you're a dumbass like me and you turn to drugs and alcohol, you're going to continue to hurt yourself. You're going to continue to have problems, except for now you're doing it to yourself. You're staying a victim. The way you become a survivor is you deal with it positively and you succeed in life despite what happened to you. That's my whole message. First channel I had, I said I would never monetize, and I didn't. This channel, I will never monetize. I'm not doing this to get money, even though we could use it. I do this in the hopes that somebody will hear what I'm saying and maybe change the course of their life. If just one person did that, and didn't have to go through the things that I put myself through, then my life would be worth something good. That's a way I could take a negative and turn it into a positive. But that's all I got to say. I just had to add that I did get a chance to tell Gabby thank you. And he's retired, but he was a good cop. And there's good and bad in everything. In me, there's good and bad. We're all different shades of gray. Some of us are worse than others. But in God's eyes, a sin is a sin. The Bible says our good deeds, that's how holy and pure God is. Our good deeds, the good things we do, are like filthy rags to God. You don't get to heaven by the good things you do. And when Jesus Christ was here on this earth, he didn't run with good people. He ran with tax collectors, prostitutes, because that's who he was here to give his message to save the ones that were lost. We all sin, all of us. The prostitute that they were going to stone to death. Man squatted down, started writing with his finger in the dirt. And then he told, because they asked, well, what should we do? The law says to stone her to death. He said, let whichever one of you is without sin, throw the first stone. And they all dropped their rocks and walked away, because every one of them knew in their heart that they were a sinner too. So next time you want to judge on somebody because of their past or a sin that they've committed, think about that. The woman said to Jesus said to the woman, has no one condemned you? And she said, no, Lord. And he said, well, then neither have I. Go and sin no more. He also said, take the plank out of your eye so you can see to take the speck out of your brother's. Judge not, lest ye be judged yourself. Do I need to go on? For all you self-righteous people that thinks that your shit don't stink, you're no different than me, no different than anybody else. If it wasn't for the sacrifice that man made on the cross and you accepting it, you wouldn't be going to heaven either, because you have sinned. And the consequences of sin is death. I don't like when Christians get on a high horse and start attacking people and chastising people and with that holier than thou bullshit, acting like they're something special, because they're sinners too. And it's not our place to judge. Yes, you should testify the good news. You should testify about Jesus, but not attack and chastise and act holier than thou, because it gives Christianity a bad name. And another thing, hear a lot of these college kids saying, oh, Christianity is a white man's religion. No, it is not. You are uneducated for a college student. Christianity was in the Middle East and Africa long before it was in Europe. Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity, and that's when Christianity was brought to Europe. That's when pictures of Christ were all made white to appeal to white people in Europe. I'm tired of this white man bad bullshit too. We're all different shades of gray. There's good and bad in every one of us. There's an old Native American Cherokee proverb, a story, and his grandfather's talking to his grandson. And he's telling his grandson, inside of all of us, there are two wolves fighting for dominancy. You got a black wolf and a white wolf fighting inside all of us. The black wolf is anger, jealousy, vengeance, pride. The white wolf is love, compassion, humility, And they are constantly at war with each other inside of us. And the little boy looks at his grandfather and he says, well, grandfather, which one wins? And the grandfather looks at him and says, whichever one you feed. If you feed that white wolf, you feed the love, the compassion, the white wolf's going to win. If you feed the black wolf, he's going to win. But inside of all of us, there's good and bad. Inside everything, there's good and bad. Police are no different. They are human beings. And like I said, the whole racial thing, in the history of the world, history's something I know a lot about. It's the only class I was in a hurry to get to. But this is all facts. You can look it up. In the history of the world, most of the slaves of the world were white. They came from the Baltic states. A lot of them were captured by black pirates and slave traders from the Barbary Coast. Then England outlawed slavery. When that happened, the slave traders started going to Africa for slaves. They always go to the poorest countries that can't defend themselves for slaves. But the slave traders didn't go up into the interior of Africa. That would have been suicide. You had nations like the Zulu nations who decimated an English, pretty modern English army with spears and shields made of animal skin. The slave traders bought slaves from other black tribesmen along the coast of Africa that were captured and defeated by other tribes and sold into slavery. And the only time in the history of the world that slavery was a racial issue is here in America. Our politicians use it as an issue to keep you divided. If you keep the sheep divided, going at each other, they're not going to have time to pay attention to what you're doing. They do that so your attention is diverted on each other. So anybody that's the black and white going at each other, Republican, Democrat going at each other, liberal, conservative, you're all sheep. And you're falling into what they want you to do. Going at each other, you're not holding your elected officials accountable for what they're doing. They want to keep you distracted. And that's just facts. But I'm going to get off here. I wish everybody a blessed night. I don't care if you're black, white, purple, blue, green. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care what your political affiliation is. You are a child of God. You are a human being. And I wish each and every one of you nothing but the good stuff. And carpe diem. Because your time on this earth is limited. And someday we're all going to have to pay that debt. And we're all going to die. So live every day like it's your last. Love a lot. Don't go to bed angry. Make a difference. Leave a positive impact on this earth while you're here. Leave all the negativity out of your heart. Quit attacking people. I've said this for years. There's one thing every human being on this planet could do that would make the world such a good place to live. If we would take all the energy that we take to attack other people and point out their inadequacies and the flaws that we see in other people, I'm sure you've seen it. Somebody on YouTube, everybody be ganging up on them, attacking them. If everybody would take that energy and they would look in the mirror and they had the courage to see that demon staring right back at them, to see your own flaws and your own inadequacies, and if everybody would just take all that energy and work on themselves to make themselves better human beings and fix the things within themselves that are broken, Just that one thing would make this world livable. Because instead of attacking and tearing each other down, which would make the world nice, we'd be making ourselves better human beings, which would make the world nice. If everybody do that, just that one thing. But the problem is, most people don't have the courage to be honest with themselves about their flaws and the things about them that need to be fixed. So that what they just spend all their time attacking other people because they're insecure with themselves. We're not here to tear each other down, people. I mean, we're all connected. We're a thread in that big tapestry of the big picture that God has. Our human brains can't see that whole big picture, but we're all threads in that tapestry, and we're all connected in that way. But have a good night, everyone, and God bless. Peace out.